text which was prepared for me approximately 1 hour ago. I would like to say that the things that come to mind from heart about Reverend Jackson is when he was here a few years ago campaigning for the presidential nomination. And a statement that stuck with me in terms of his concern about other people relative to Mexico. He said, Mexico is not just the country down south. Mexico, those people are our neighbors. Again, an expression of brotherly love. And as I watched him on TV at the Democratic convention, one of the things he stated was, if I have made mistakes, be patient with me, for God is not through with me yet. Ladies and gentlemen, Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Tonight, I'm grateful to God to have yet another privilege to share with you at this place again, and for you to come together as a community to hear that which I have to say and share, engage in some measure of dialogue. I am grateful, and I respect you very much. Together there is much for us to do. Delighted that friend, that brother beloved, whose voice of prophetic witness can be counted upon, is here tonight as he always is when we're in each other's proximity. Reverend Stewart, won't you stand? Democrats, chance to lead, choice to make, and charge to keep. We're in the twilight of 1984, the dawn of 1988. The Rainbow Coalition embarked on a historic mission to challenge the course of our nation just 3 years ago. We went into forsaken places, cotton in the fruit fields, Indian reservations. We slept with the urban rejected, family farmers, disaffected and dislocated workers, the youth, the anti-apartheid activists, decent praise activists, gays and lesbians. We reached out to try to pull the various pieces of America together. We reached out to the boat stuck at the bottom. We described America as a quilt. Not a blanket that's all red, or white, blue, or yellow, but a quilt made up of many patches, many colors, many sizes and shapes, many textures, but bound by a common thread. America at its best is a quilt. And every patch and every piece fits somewhere. Let's reflect on the impact of our work in just 3 short years. We brought on 2 million new voters, many of whom had never been inspired to vote before. Others who had lost hope and dropped out. The net gain of Hispanic, Black, and female officials. In the 61 congressional districts that we won, there's now a net gain of 4 new Black congresspeople. There are 5 new senators who changed the makeup of the U.S. Senate, directly the result of our work. In Louisiana, Mr. Breaux won with 53%. He got 39% of the white vote and 91% of the black vote. That coalition, which allowed our interests to converge, took him to the Senate. In North Carolina, Mr. Sanford won with 52% of the vote. He got 43% of the white vote, 94% of the black vote. The coalition was working. In Alabama, Shelby won with 51% of the vote. He got 38% of the white vote, 91% of the black vote. He's now senator. Mr. Cranston got 44% of the white vote, 96% of the black vote. He won by 1 point. He's now senator. Mr. Fowler from Georgia won with 51%. He got 38% of the white vote and 90% of the black vote. In those instances, people moved from historic racial battleground and moved into economic and political common ground and turned to each other and not on each other. It took us a step closer to a government of, for, and by the people that's sensitive and caring. But there's some things fundamentally different as we meet tonight. 20 years ago, we gathered at Atlantic City, mobilized around Fannie Lou Hamer. We were locked out of doors. Mr. Hump and others were coming in and out the back of the convention center at the boardwalk, negotiating us the half of a seat of a delegation from Mississippi, formed the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. But 20 years later, the same forces that were locked out are now collected to have the power to determine the candidate. In 1984, for those who speak of practical politics, there is nothing more practical in politics than counting. There's nothing more basic than your principles and convictions. Quite apart from the numbers, your principles and your convictions ought to be in place. But beneath the principles, there are practical dimensions. We said, well, if I run, you can't win. because it's a right. If you don't use your right, you lose your right. So maybe there's a principal dimension in running, but this business is about winning. In 1984, Mr. Mondale got 6.7 million votes in the primaries, 6.7 million. Mr. Hawk got 6.1. I got 3.3. I got 3.3 million votes and raised less than $3 million. It's about 99 cents a vote. The most cost-efficient campaign in American history. Out of that campaign emerged a new psychology, a new way of people seeing themselves in our nation and in the world. When you look at 6.7 million votes, you speak about practical politics. Well, 10 million progressive votes can win the nomination. And that's practical. There are 13 million registered blacks alone. 10 million is practical. Those who once stood outside in protest now have the power to redress their grievances and make our nation more just, more democratic, and more fair. We meet tonight to review the unfinished business of Dr. King's agenda. Well, 20 years ago, he stood outside on the steps at the Lincoln Monument. That's where he dreamed. But we cannot implement the dream from where he dreamed it. He dreamed it outside on the steps at the Lincoln Monument. We must implement it from inside the White House and appoint cabinet members and justices and use it high and lofty platform to set a new tone for our country. In these last few weeks, we've seen some very ugly signs in our country. Mr. Reagan's budget cuts represent the rescinding of historical commitments to fair and just government. His 1986 budget, 788 budget, proposes to eliminate the college work-study program, under which thousands of students will partly work their way through college, incurring no debt, short or long term, will now be driven out. Proposes to cut back on the Perkins Loan Program. The colleges and universities share with the federal government the cost of establishing campus-based revolving loan programs. This reduction would eliminate 200,000 needed students. This administration proposes to rescind and to eliminate the Student Incentive Grant Program. It encourages the provision of need-based grants through state funding. It plans to rescind a historical commitment through education. The spirit of rescinding the historical commitment. Mr. Reagan has seeped the clouds, and now the acid rain is falling in Arizona. The spirit of rescinding historical commitments. It would be a narrow focus and a mistake think that if my house is on fire and you're living next door, that you're safe. Because as surely as the wind blows, you're next. One of the big errors in the focus on, the narrow focus on the governor sending the Dr. King holiday in Arizona. Dr. King, in that formula, is the numerator, the denominator of rescinding proposal to support tuition increases of $125 per semester. That's rescinding commitment to education for all of our children. And those who rescind the commitment to education are signing off on an increase in incarceration. And to reduce our children's life options to jail and ill preparation is neither morally sound nor cost efficient. 4 years, the Arizona State, in the State University, full academic scholarship costs less than $25,000. Those same 4 years, on the full penitentiary scholarship, costs more than $125,000. Costs 4 to 5 times more to incarcerate children than to educate them. Recension. Not just Dr. King's birthday, but Dr. King's dream to educate all of the children. Rescinding strong consumer legislation and consumer advocates. Recension. Proposal of an all-Indian county. Not enough to make the Indians go to the reservation, but then an all-Indian county would then turn into a Bantu state, like South Africa. Spirit of rescinding. Stepping away from the historical commitment for good government. The whole phenomenon of English only is kind of cultural suicide wrapped in nice language. It's like Kool-Aid and cyanide. Kind of sweet and deathly dangerous. Why must we fundamentally reject the notion of English only in the name of patriotism? It's retrogression. It's political isolation for a superpower with worldwide responsibility. I remember one of my painful lessons of regret. I was born in the slum, but the slum was not born in me. My mother had this difficult challenge of always trying to keep me above the gravitational pull of our environment. Against great odds, we struggle. I'm adopted. Many of you saw me running from the White House. But you have no sense of the house in which I was running. You have some sense of Pennsylvania Avenue, but no sense of Handy Street in Greenville, South Carolina. And when I was born, I could not have my father's name, and while they debated my name, my grandmother gave me hers, and I kept it until I was adopted at around 12. Even against those odds, I never earned the right to do less than my best. And I remember my mother would try to challenge me to expand my cultural base. She wanted me to sing in the choir. And as a football player, I was made to feel uneasy about singing in the choir. And she said, if you really know who you are, the singing will not alter your personality or your character. And that the rock songs you listen to on the radio, they have their place, but you need to learn the Hallelujah chorus, and I will give thanks unto thee, and broaden your cultural base now. And so I sang in the choir because I was drafted by her. My first teacher, who was a Sunday school teacher, told my mother I should take French. And I was drafted for that as well. And the first 2 or 3 weeks, I was doing very well. I was very conscious of staying on the honor roll. The teacher got sick. The boys have been riding my back about, take French for what? Can't speak it to us. You're not going to have the French-speaking neighbors. I had a way of throwing them off of my back. For that time, I became weak. So I rationalized in my mind, if I can make A's in history, in English, in math, a C in French, I could stay on the honor roll and balance all my A's with my C's. Who could complain about an athlete who was starting and making the honor roll, and my mother-in-law, my coach, would catch it? And they didn't. And Mrs. Sales said, Jesse, you could not be doing as well as you are in English and literature and not learn French. I said, I'm doing my best. She said, don't lie. And I said, I swear. She said, don't swear. I know you're not doing your best. At graduation time, I remember walking past Mrs. Sales with my cap and gown, on the road, college scholarship to Big Ten University to play football. I walk past and say, and I'm graduating, and I'm going to the Big Ten, and I don't know French. And she looked at me as if to say, but keep on living. I went to college. I had to take a foreign language. French or Spanish or German. At least I had been taught in Mrs. Sales' class, at least being intelligent enough to say Je ne sais pas. I did not know, at least say that. By the time I developed the mental block, I could not learn French. And so I struggled and balanced off my C's and my A's. I had a perfect equation, perfect crime. Dr. Rice said as if he had taught me, Mrs. Sales, you're not doing your best. Doc, I swear I am. Don't swear. You're not doing your best. But I was playing ball on the road. President of the student body. My dean could chide me, but couldn't really complain. My mother was too proud at that point to complain. I had my perfect crime going. I had my grades. I remember walking past Dr. Rice at graduation. If you will, it was deja vu. I said, and I'm graduating, and I have my diploma, and I don't know French. Same funny kind of look on his face. God has something more in store for you. Keep on living. Next year, I began to work with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And a chance to travel around this country and around the world in some measure. My responsibility and my blessings continue to grow. After he was killed, the burdens became heavier and so did the responsibilities. One day, I received a call from Washington, from the State Department. 6 ambassadors were on hookup. Our people in the Sahel region of Africa are dying. In some places, it has not rained in 12 years. We need water, we need pumps, we need money. We need you to help promote our cause. Will you help us? And I felt so honored before I could say yes, and I'll meet you in Washington and say, we'll come to Chicago and visit with you and your family. And so Jack and I prepared for their coming. I remember so well that day that Omar Yusuf, who's now UN ambassador, got out of the car along with the 6 ambassadors. And they started down the driveway. I felt this awesome sense of history. We've been divided by the waters. But the blood that unites us is stronger than the waters that divided us. The sense of slave ship championship, we're finally getting it together. And they were smiling, and I was smiling, and I reached out to Maurice, come on, tell the boom, monsieur. Sitting on one load, and Mrs. Sells was sitting on the other, and the Bible verse was sitting right here. The one that says, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man or a woman soweth, that shall they also reap. I have done less than my best, and less than your best is a sin. And the wages of sin is death of mind, opportunity, and options. And so I was convicted. Come on, tell the woman she was. Raise your hand, brother. Once I got past 3 p.m., I was on a slow burn going down to the ember real fast. Here I had a chance to communicate people across the world. And I've been programmed into English only. I only talk with my immediate neighbors. I was locked. I was made illiterate on the globe. Quite literate at home, on the road in high school, on the road in college, known around the world, worked with Dr. King, but illiterate in the world community. English only. In the name of patriotism and pride, it's cultural suicide. Only our enemies could recommend that we fight for the right to be limited, and they hope that we win. We want to speak English only because it's the only language that we can master? Or is it contempt for other language? Let's discuss this situation for a minute. America, the great, the beautiful, we are a superpower. We have interests all over the world. And outer space, we are a superpower. There are 4 billion people on earth. About 250 million are Americans. We're 6% of the world population, 6%. There are 4 billion people on earth. 1/2 of all of them are Asian. 1/2 of them are Chinese. 1/8 of the human beings are African, 1/4 Nigerian. 22 nations in the Middle East. Muslims in the main and Jews. That's Europe. Our neighbors in South Central and Latin America. And their neighbors in the Caribbean of African descent. When Mr. Reagan and Mr. Gorbachev met in Geneva and Iceland, together they represented 1/8 of the human race, East and West. That was a minority meeting. 500 million Americans and Russians combined. There's 700 million Indians that Rajiv Gandhi presides over every day. America, the beautiful America, the superpower. Most people in the world are yellow, are brown, are black, non-Christian, female, young, and don't speak English. And nobody who wants to preside over this world or make a significant impact would fight for the right to be unable to communicate with most people on earth. It is backwards thinking. It is false pride. It's against our national interest to be English only. We must speak the languages of the world to make an impact upon the world. And so we must reject the spirit of rescinding the great dreams of life. Whether it is Pharaoh, or Herod, or Nebuchadnezzar, or Reagan, or Mecam, we cannot let them be dream busters. The dream of Dr. King cannot be rescinded. We will not let the dream die. This year, there have been attempts to affect our agenda. When I look at how people responded to these incidents, we got the word today that the AFGE is not going to have this convention in Arizona. And the Democratic Finance Council canceled this convention. And the Negro Publishers Association canceled their convention. The National Baptist Convention has decided not to bring its convention here. And the tour industry is being contacted all over the nation to not land at a place that's committed to busting the dream of Dr. King. So it's going to cost more to not to have the holiday than to have it. This year, a series of these little incidents have occurred. And they're designed to take our eyes off of the prize. The prize is our coalition can retire the dream busters. Our coalition can take the White House back in '88, but we must keep our eyes on the prize. A series of incidents based on race have occurred. They've gotten lots of publicity. Howard Beach, New York. Mr. Black was lynched. Forsyth County, Georgia, the blacks were rocked. Charleston, South Carolina, where a young black was terrorized by upperclassmen, wearing sheets and hoods and burning crosses, and the like. But my friends, we would make a mistake to let Howard Beach and Forsyth, Georgia, define these times for us. We make a mistake to allow them to become the symbols for who we are now and become the substitutes for the source of the tension. I refuse to allow the extreme right wing, the hurt, the maimed, and the lunatic fringe define this period and bust our dreams. There's something else going on besides cross burning and frighten people behind sheets. This past year, I was invited to speak at a farmer's rally in Chillicothe, Missouri, 6,000 farmers, most of whom had been Reagan supporters. They sought state security for my presence, and they couldn't get it. And farmers drove 300 tractors from 6 counties. That's the rising move. The farmers and ranchers had their Congress in St. Louis, Missouri, and asked me to be the keynote speaker. That's the new move. Willie Nelson had 80,000 family farmers and supporters at Farm 82 on July 4th in Austin, Texas. And I was greeted with warm and loud cheers. That's the new move. I led a cavalcade of tractors in northern Minnesota. 10 farmers were marching abreast with crosses symbolizing farmers who had been driven to suicide. There were 4,000 of them marching in the line. They had me up on an $85,000 tractor while they're saying, "We shall overcome." They have a Reagan, Bush bumper sticker on the decal. That's the new move. We would make a mistake to let the word go forward. The dominant issue of this day is racial violence. That is not true. The dominant violence of this hour is economic violence. In all of these incidents, one black life has been lost, and that is unfortunate. The reason why Dr. King's life and legacy is so alive is because the legacy is that racial violence is now illegal. Those who threw the bricks must now face the law. Those who did the killing must now face the law. Those who bombed people's houses, seeking open housing, must now face the law. Racial violence is now illegal because we won. But economic violence is legal, and thus that is our challenge. When you're driven out of school, though you have a mind to learn and a will to work, driven out of school with no job to go to, that's economic violence. Farmers driven into suicide, hands that fed the nation and the world, to which we offer neither mercy, management, nor markets. Economic violence, plants closed on workers without notice, and take our jobs to slave labor markets abroad. Economic violence. Economic violence. And just as in the 60s we had mass education, mobilization, demonstration, and social legislation, this generation must have mass education, mobilization, demonstration, and economic legislation. We must fight for houses and jobs and health care. And if there must be a fight, let us choose our enemy and the site of the fight. Don't let someone else choose your enemy, not the site of the fight. Poor whites and poor blacks and poor browns are not each other's enemies. Living on the same diminished and threatened conditions, are standing in the same soup line, same unemployment line, same army, same graveyard, same reduced life option. The fight between blacks and whites and browns is unnatural. It's a fight imposed upon us. And there must be a fight. Let it not be between the black, brown, and the white, but rather between the dislocated, the abused versus the merger maniacs. If there must be a fight, let it not be at a pizza party. Let it be at a plant globe, a plant gate that closed on workers without notice. If there must be a fight, let it be at a family farm that's been foreclosed. Let it be at a missile site which threatens all of us. If there must be a fight, let it be at the site of a drug exchange where we choose hope over dope. If we must fight, let's fight for hope and jobs and justice. Let us fight for economic legislation. 25 billionaires up top, 5 million homeless at the bottom. Economic violence, vulgar. People are driven away from hospitals while they're still sick. And they die. Violence. In emergency rooms of hospitals, but dying because they don't have a green or yellow card to go upstairs to an empty bed waiting for the rich to get sick. Parents. You know most poor people are not on welfare. They work hard every day. They farm. They farm. They cook at their school. They clean up at their school. They clean up your bathrooms. They raise other people's children. They clean other people's houses. They work at the hotels. They lose their personalities behind uniforms. They mop halls at the hospitals. They change the beds and the clothes of those who are diseased. And then they catch the disease and can't afford to lie in the bed they made up every day. My friends, that's not right. And so our generation must not be diverted by these dream busters trying to divert our attention by symbolism. I'm not confused, and you shouldn't be either. You look at the reduction of youth in college, an increase in the jail population. That's not Howard Beach. Howard Beach not investing in South Africa. That's not Howard Beach. Howard Beach not foreclosing farms. That's not Howard Beach. We're more locked out of Wall Street than we are out of Howard Beach. Keep your eyes on the prize and be not confused. We must have a massive coalition for change in our country. Like some of my friends, we live in a rural community. We can't just think Phoenix and Tempe and Arizona anymore. We live in our Father's world. We live in a big world. And when that was the nuclear accident at Chernobyl, the newsmen for the first 2 days kind of laughed. They had a nuclear accident. They're less perfect than we are. and they can't handle this nuclear stuff. It's a little different from 3 Mile Island, but they can't quite handle it. And now Gorbachev don't want to talk about it. The Russians got a problem. But then the wind blew. And Europe had a problem. And then the wind kept on blowing. And the West Coast had a problem. It says, friends, that the nuclear buildup is too dangerous, too costly, too likely to take place, and we need a president who will not sleep through arms reduction negotiations. Cannot talk about domestic programs without talking about arms reduction. Stop deploying those weapons, testing them. We can have seismographic, on-site verification. We need more than we need a will to eliminate them, or they will eliminate us. While we have a choice, let's make the right choice. To South Africa, this generation must have the same sense of pride about eliminating Nazism in South Africa as our fathers and mothers did about eliminating Nazism 45 years ago. We can't just say we don't want to be soiled by South Africa. We must end the South Africa and apartheid in our day. Comprehensive plan for Southern Africa, not just South Africa. Negotiate all foreign troops out of Angola. Get South Africa out of Namibia. Help secure their borders. Stop funding Sabimbi. Restore support to Mozambique. Build the Beira Corridor. Let Zambia and Zimbabwe have a way out. Supply aid to Tanzania. Start talking with Zimbabwe again. Let's isolate South Africa with a full trade embargo and save lives and gain our self-respect again. That's nothing tonight in all of this. Quite as disgusting to me as to think in South Africa, we betray the South African through silence. But to think that our national government is trying to kill or take and overthrow a government in Central America against our will is painful, it's frustrating, headlines read Ortega killed by us. Where would our pride be? Where would our self-respect be? We cannot stand idly by while our government breaks an armed embargo with Iran, use money from that deal to overthrow another government. We need our national self-respect back. We need Reagan and all the crowd that knew about it to assume their rightful place out of power. In these last few years, I've been able to travel around the world and get a sense of foreign policy. I've been to South Africa, East, West, and Central Africa. I've been to the Caribbean, Central America, Europe, Asia. I met with Nixon, Ford, Reagan, and Carter. I met with Perez, Arafat, Assad, and Hussein, Gorbachev, Ortega, Castro, Mugabe, Kunda, Michel, Nyerere, the Pope, Mitterrand, Dr. King,